Hey, it's Ari. A few times a year, the podcast team and I like to look back at previous episodes, pull out important threads and nuggets of information, and bring them back to the surface. For this week's episode, we found great content around planning for the future and springing forward. Perfect for the spring episode. The stories you're going to hear vary, but one thing is clear. If you aren't looking ahead and planning for the future, your competition's going to get in front of you. Please enjoy the episode. We hope you learn from it. Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
As a small business being customer-centric, for the majority of our history, we were really focused on customers. So we had the core technology and we had really a core customer base. And we sort of worked with them to kind of refine and tweak products to make them meet specific customers' need. But more recently, as we've kind of gotten more of an outward focus and more of a growth mindset, we've dived pretty deeply into developing our core technology and looking at what's going to help keep us relevant for the next 66 years.
I think innovation is about having, just like every other part of the business, passionate people who want to innovate, and I mean, we go out and try and find those people and try and give them the opportunity to innovate, and it is a challenge because if you're a manufacturing business, you want to make stuff that makes you money as well as innovating.
You're exactly where I was going to go. So, I think people say in business, you can see where their priorities are by where they put the money, right? So when you think about the budget at the beginning of the year and allocating resources, how do you think about investing in innovation without necessarily a known ROI at the end?
Yeah, that's a trick. And those, I'm going to say the unknown ROI ones are always more satisfactory when they're funded by the America's Cup teams.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I asked about other businesses, because the AstroTurf people might not have that opportunity. There's no America's Cup AstroTurf race that I'm aware of.
But sometimes there is, partnerships with the universities. Universities will fund your research or some of your research or whatever. We've been working with a guy who went to university at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and the reason we got involved with him is because he did some projects at university that are totally applicable to our industry, and surprising when you look around the world. You can find people doing, you mentioned the staples guy or the stomach staples or whatever. I bet if you hunted hard enough, you can find someone who's kind of motivated to do some stuff on that's not quite in the business. And so I think you have to look around for innovation, and sometimes you do need to just get your sort of neck out, stick it on the block, and go, okay, we're going to fund something that I can't see a return for.
Talk through your thinking of how you think about investment decisions in the business and where technology fits in there.
It's always a challenge because the equipment is expensive, and you're right, it's a chicken or the egg. And I remember having conversations a few years ago before we bought this new press, which again is $6 million. And to having the conversation with my former CFO, he's since retired, saying, Don, are we going to be able to afford that? Like this is the real deal. So Kerry Brown, who's our vice president of operations, to his credit, he did a lot of research. He went to all the printing press manufacturers and pretty much presented to myself and to Bob, who was our CFO. And I think Bob's jaw hit the ground when he saw top speed of this machine is 15,000, top speed of other machine, 10,000. Or make ready times instead of 45 minutes per color in a setup is now only going to be 15 minutes. And these kind of statistics back and forth. And then ultimately it's dollars and cents. So it's okay, maybe we're going to have people retiring. Are we going to be downsizing at all? How do we afford this technology? But I'm telling you right now, being in Connecticut, you need to have that technology. It's expensive, and employees, it's very different when I have to pay someone. If I was in Kentucky or down south, for maybe I'm going to pay someone in Newtown, Connecticut. So we really have to be smart. We don't buy lots of pieces of equipment. We buy very strategic pieces of equipment. So this one new press here took out 2 printing presses. We just bought a die cutter that was installed right in the middle of the pandemic, right smack in July. It's called a BOPS die cutter. Again, you're looking at 1.8 million for top speeds, changeover times, so fast. And now we have some of the latest and greatest equipment.
What do you see kind of in the future of Altec going forward? Or do you feel like the product line's going to remain the same? Are you guys changing? What's kind of the future of
That's
Altec?
a really insightful question. So we're a contract manufacturer, and we build products for our customers. But one of our engineers also designed an interesting product in order to solve a labor issue in our factory. So as I said before, we're constantly trying to find ways to take waste out of the process. And we were doing some testing on some wires. And this engineer created a box that would automatically or automate some of that testing process. And so we're exploring whether or not we can create that product in the marketplace. We're in the exploratory phase right now. So while we're a contract manufacturer, if things go right, we may start developing and selling one of our own products. So we would also be an OEM or an original equipment manufacturer as well.
Wow.
And that will help us diversify our business.
When you talk about new technology everywhere, I mean, everything from your, ERP systems, MRP, are you guys leveraging that? Different obviously machines I'm sure have changed. Share a little bit about what you've seen in some of the technology and what you think has made real impacts that you've invested in your business.
Yeah. You're right in that people tend to think of the technology just being in the machines, but it's on all the other support functions too. Like in IT, just on all the inspection records, but excuse me. Also, like inspection equipment, things that used to take us, an hour a piece to inspect. Now it's like 30 seconds with optical scanning and all this. So you have to keep up with that. I think we invest in technology basically when it makes real common sense to increase the flow of the product. So in other words, we're set up in like flow lines producing parts, and we tend to look at the how would you say it, the overall output of, let's say, the flow line or the cell. And then whenever you're reaching a point where the volume's got to go up, your tack time goes down, you're trying to produce more, then the first thing you have to say is, well, how can we do this with the same people and the same, that. So it forces you to invest in technology. It's not always in the next milling machine or something like that that's a little faster. It's quite often in the inspection or something like that, because it's a matter of flowing the product quickly and meet customer demand.
I will say that in my business, one of the things that was sort of a key ingredient in succeeding and staving off competition from Asian countries, India and China in particular, where they do have capabilities, is the cost to manufacture my product has to be the same as or less than the cost to make it there, plus the logistical cost to get it from overseas into this country. So that meant buying the best equipment, having the most efficient operation, having the most skilled people. So those are the kind of people that we're really short on now, because we've grown 25% each year in the last 2 years, which is quite substantial for us. We need solid rung of middle managers. It's hard to manage growth. You can go broke not managing growth well.
If you do an assessment of where we are, again, go vis-a-vis our near-peer competitors, Russia and China, we're probably at the most, I'd say, aggressive point since the Cold War in terms of where we sit. We've got competitors that are dramatically investing in new technology. We all know what China's doing. We know what Russia's doing. Russia's, in some ways beating us in artificial intelligence. Obviously, we know what China's doing, et cetera. And the need to be able to quickly field technologies for the warfighter to be able to be effective against these threats requires technology, requires investments in technology. And such that, what we're looking at Capewell is how do we use, we've got 100 plus years of legacy tech. How do we utilize new tech, apply it to old tech? For example, if we're going to be delivering some level of payload, a traditional transport aircraft out of a C-130, and we can incorporate artificial intelligence in a guidance system, or if we say we need to drop this pad from here to deploy over there, and we need to use machine vision or computer vision to be able to identify in a GPS-denied environment. Well, that's a smaller component of that entire system, but we're utilizing a lower cost transport platform versus a B1 or a B2 or something incredibly expensive. But strapping on that new tech, getting it out in the field really quickly, testing it, innovating, rolling the next rev, and working from that will be the way we'll be able to be competitive against Russia and China. Because quite frankly, their speed of tech delivery is vastly more than we are now. And so I think that if we are to be successful, we have to be a fast follower and even exceed their pace.
One thing we haven't gotten to yet that I really wanted to talk about, two kind of things actually. One is, and you did touch on it a little bit earlier, but I think it's so important, is investing in your business and making sure that we're putting dollars into research and development, developing people, developing products. I know that's something that you guys believe in, you personally and at InCord. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about your thoughts, and what you guys are doing to invest in the future to make sure the business is as successful or more successful in 2021, 2025, 2030 than it is this year.
So I think you think about two things when you think about investing in the business, or maybe three. You think about the people, you think about the workplace, and you think about the tools the people have, at least for us. So when we think about the tools for the workplace, we are very, very involved in the vendor community and the tooling community to see what new products are out there. We might not have a use for it yet, but if we know what it is, when that special situation comes up, we know just the tool to get. And often we've just thought things are really cool and we've brought them in and figured them out, and then we figure out a way to use them. But we always are trying to look for tools to make jobs easier for people. And so we always ask people what they want. And there might not be a tool out there for them yet, but as soon as we find one, we'll get it in. Our work it requires hands. Quite a bit of it is using your hands on a sewing machine or twisting rope to splice it. So any tools that we can find to assist people to make their day a little bit easier, that's going to come from them. They're the ones working with the materials. And the same thing on the technology side. We ask the sales team, what tools do you need? Like, forget what we think you might need. What tools do you need to make your job easy? And sometimes it's really simple. They're like, I want a binder with everything in it. And you're like, oh.
I could do that.
Okay. Yeah. And other times it's, we want a different CRM, or, we want a CRM that does this, this, and this. And then we go out searching. On a building perspective, dreaming in that future, it's where my sister really, shines in what does the next 30 years look like? What should the workplace look like? What's going to be the safest workplace, the most efficient, the brightest, and what does that space need to look like for what we're going to be capable of doing in 30 years from now?
In manufacturing, it's always a challenge to buy new equipment, right? Because those are not, it's not like going to buy a new PC or a new pencil or whatever, right? These are big long-term investments. We got to make sure that we're going to see an ROI, not just in 3 or 4 months, but this is going to be a multi-year kind of commitment. So how have you thought about, especially when you were VP of operations, probably even a little bit closer to the decision on that, how were you thinking about that? And maybe share with some of the other manufacturers in Connecticut and elsewhere that are listening, how you might think about when to make those investments, and they, hopefully they can learn from that.
Well, you're very right. There's none of the machines we have you can just go out and buy. None of them exist. Of course, some of the technologies are common to other businesses. For instance, now we just started a project of finding out a new coder for coding our adhesives out, and there are manufacturers in the country or around the world that can supply such coders. It's tricky to find the right one that can do our products, because it's such a broad range that we're doing. So how do we think about it? It is long term. We have learned a lot from our German friends about manufacturing excellence. We don't buy cheap machines anymore. We buy good machines, and we buy the right machines, and we take the time to figure out which machine that is.
CNC Technology, and it kind of, it's been around for a while. They had the tape machines. They had the programming only at the machine. And as computers, started, I'm not a big computer guy, but, as everything evolved, the machines got more and more smart, so to speak. And today,
like our telephones. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, you could use your telephone to check machines now, to make sure they're running and things like that. But, the technology, the machine itself is doing the same thing. It's taking cutters and cutting metal into shapes based on the program you put in. Of course, as the technology grew, well, so did the complexity of the parts that we're making, and also the quality of the parts. And that's kind of, it's been beneficial because you look at cars today, how much longer they last, how much better they are. So the machines are the same way. They're constantly advancing to do new things. And some of the things these guys can make the machines do, you're just like, wow, I can't believe that it's doing that, And there's a lot of science to it too, though, with the cutters, inserts and drills and end mills and things like that. That's also advanced, so you're getting a lot more life out of them. And what materials will cut stainless steel, what materials will cut this better. So there's a lot more to it, and I'm not a fully understanding of all that. I know a little bit, but these guys, like I said, they're that's why they tell me what to buy.
So when you think about, Keith, investing in the business or making changes in the business, like how do you think about what to invest in or how to make those decisions?
I mean, I'd say we're one of the most high-tech shops around, in terms of technology. And I think we'll continue to use that based on, just the aging of equipment. And we'll, not just refurbish, but replenish or exchange that equipment over time. But it's really about the people, right? The hardest thing right now for us to find is really good people, right? Most importantly, people that fit those core values, right? So that they fit in and, it works from a chemistry perspective, right? But also the people that have that knowledge and experience to be able to, take our company to the next level. So I think that's really our focus right now is finding the right people, making sure they're in the right seats, because it doesn't benefit anyone if they don't like what they're doing, certainly, right? It doesn't benefit the company, it doesn't benefit them. So we're just trying to make sure we got all the right people in the right seats so that we can inevitably have fun, right?
Yeah,
core value, right?
No doubt about that. So when you think about investing and when it's time to make the decision, like what's the criteria you use to say, all right, Schwerdtle's going to pull the trigger. We're going to invest in, revamping, getting a new machine, or no, we want to do something with our CRM or our ERP platform, or how do you think about those decisions and making those investment choices? Because you can't do everything, right?
You can't do everything, and especially coming out of the recession was really challenging. And one of the things that really helped us a lot was that DECD program where they had the low-interest loans. And we used that program to move to a different facility that was all on one floor. And then we also used it to buy a really critical, it's about $250,000 piece of equipment that was going to give us a real competitive edge and that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise without that support from the state.
Right.
And so I'm very appreciative of programs like that and the manufacturer's voucher program and others that have helped us through difficult times to acquire technology that really has been a game changer for our company.
Listen, public-private partnerships so important.
Yeah.
And working together, I'm big on this collaboration thing we talked about at pre-show.
Yeah.
We're always investing in our people, right? Investing in our processes, investing in our infrastructure, and we've been able to do that every year.
How do you think about that, right? I mean, listen, no matter how well you're doing, resources are always limited, right?
Yes.
I mean, time, effort, money, all that's got
Yep.
limitations. So when you're thinking about investments, you bought a plant next door, how do you think about that? What's your kind of process, Bill, for thinking about what we're doing this year and how do we prioritize?
There's always sort of a prioritization list, which I have, right? It's dynamic and changes. Like, I don't know, we have a whole bunch of things, different customers and products which are pending right now. So it moves a lot, but we've invested really heavily in quality. Whenever there's a decision, hey, do we buy this key or vision system or not? Or, we've always thrown down on quality. Just because, one rejection can cost us, a huge amount of money. And then it's just, kind of that we walk that line. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a gut feel.
I was going to say a little bit of gut.
But there's a little bit of a, hey, we know this, it's funny as we look ahead, I always say, hey, we can see 20% of what's ahead of us right now. And there's a huge amount of really exciting stuff which we have going on right now. And there's 80% we don't know, Someone could come to us with a huge product tomorrow.
Joel, when you think about making those investments, how do you think about them? How do you know it's the right time to put into that new machine, to invest in the robotics? Like, how do you make those decisions?
Well, a lot of the investments so far and historically have been like, well, that thing's dead. So since we have these parts to run, we're going to need to come up with something and fast.
Okay, so it's been more based on need.
The decision was already made for us when the computer board, blew up.
Right.
That's happened several times. Ironically, almost at the end of the run of parts every time, it's like the machine almost made it and then was like, you know what, forget it. I'm done. Opportune time to blow up. Let's go. So, in terms of other investments, I mean, we are in the mode right now of trying to be more efficient, trying to condense machinery, condense, tooling, and eliminate hand feeding. When we started, there were so many things that were done by hand, and that just isn't efficient. It wasn't efficient then; it's less efficient now. And a lot of the jobs are pretty monotonous. Some people love it, some people hate it. We've eliminated the majority of that. So in terms of efficiency, it's really what makes sense for production. And then we also have a community focus. I mean, we do a lot of donating. We see ourselves as a part of the community. Manufacturing in the state of Connecticut, and actually Durham in particular, where we are, has a pretty bad rap for environmental reasons, understandably. So we're really trying to change that perception. So that's why I think there was a lot of emphasis on the gardens and the bird feeders and the some of the outdoor stuff. We have a little patio. We got a picnic table outside where people can eat. Lunch, to try to turn that around. It's kind of like a new era of manufacturing.
How do you determine what the next thing is?
When customers start complaining, because, that does happen. Of course, you always have to keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. And what happens is just like now, COVID, right? Things slow down. And when your large customers slow down, you have to try to pick up other work. And so other work comes. And now, your main customer starts getting busy again. And all of a sudden, you have a shortage. You have a shortage of equipment, capabilities, and so on. And you have to do something. And we've always done that. We've always invested in the company. We transitioned where we had, over 30 multi-spindle screw machines to where now we only have 3 or 4, actually 5. They're in the corner. I hardly see them.
And instead you're using?
And instead we've upgraded to all CNC equipment. We have, we're mainly Swiss style lathes. And we also have, other types of lathes like mill turns and so on, vertical machining centers and all kinds of things, but pretty much all CNC. Where we've made the greatest gains in productivity and where we've made the greatest impact in our business is that we went from making blanks on machines to where we make finished parts in one operation. Mm-hmm. And that's always our goal now. So we eliminate a lot of the waste, and we're lean because we don't have to we try not to deal with multiple operations, and we try to when we make a part, it goes through the machine in one shot, and it's done.
the more that we invest in technology, the more we can do either more parts or more complex parts by having technology, the more leverage each person gets. So if I can have one person who can say maybe run 2 or 3 CNC machines as an example in an aerospace shop, so we could do more parts, let's say, that person's that much more important. Because if that person goes down, effectively those 3 machines are down. And the more we leverage technology, the more we have to have higher skilled people and the more valuable those people are. So it's to your point, it's a big investment to get people in there.
It absolutely is. And and the other thing about manufacturing is there's really room for people of varying skill sets. And we talk about Industry 4.0 and technology and how important that is, and it definitely is. And people need to upskill, and it provides more opportunities for more advanced careers. But we're always going to need the people that come in and kind of do some of the same things day in and day out, because those things are just as vital. I always said that the person that's deburring our parts, can be kind of one of the most repetitive type jobs, but they can ruin a part in a split second, right? So, oops, we just took off the corner. And they're vital as well. And
Sure.
and we need people, there's places for everybody in manufacturing.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.